Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome. So please come in and say hi in the chat. Say where you're listening from. And if you've got any animals with you at the moment. There we go. Okay, so I am here with ALEXIS KRIEL of the African Pangolin Working Group, who you've met, and also with Gareth Thomas, who is a shepherd to the pangolins. Do you have another title, Gareth?
No.
Pangolin shepherd is a pretty good title, isn't it?
Yeah, it works. I'm a walker. I'm a pangolin follower. I just follow them around.
Perfect. I won't go through your entire bios because we did that in the first part last week, and also there on the website, so everyone can check you out. So we have people coming in from Devon, US, with 4 cats, Germany, Canterbury, Maya's here, another cat, Denmark, Maryland. Who else have got? Sweden, Wales, Amsterdam, Canada. We have people from all over. We also have a dog and 2 more cats, lots of cats. British Columbia and more Canada. Great. Well done, everybody. Glastonbury, Sussex and Leeds. So people will keep coming in. I'm letting everybody in tonight, in case you're wondering why I'm suddenly looking over there. It's so lovely to see you all again. Alexis, would you mind just reminding people about the 8 different pangolin species and the 4 that you work with particularly?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good to have you all back and to continue with this conversation. It was so enriching from last week, but we're looking forward to all of your sharing as well this week. So there are 8 pangolin species, 4 in Africa and 4 in Asia. I can't rattle off all of the 8 different species, but you know, going back to when, before all of the continents split and divided millions of years ago, there were areas where pangolins existed. They've been on the planet for 85 million years. So when the continents separated, Pangaea, and that was the supercontinent. When those continents separated, we ended up with conspecific species. So pangolins that are in Africa and pangolins that are in Asia. So the 4 African species are the black-bellied and white-bellied pangolins, which are arboreal species. So they live primarily in trees and canopies of rainforests. And then that's Central Africa crossing over across the central line of Africa between the West and the East. And then we have the giant pangolin, which is deep in forest, rainforest. The largest of the pangolin species, it goes up to 35 kg. So this is a large animal. The arboreal species, the black-bellied and white-bellied pangolin, are the smallest, and they go up to around 2.5 kilos at adult. And then in South Africa, we have the Temminck's pangolin, and that's the pangolin species that we predominantly work with here in South Africa.
Wonderful. I can help you out with the other 4. There's also the Indian, the Palawan, which is also known as the Philippine, the Sunda, and the Chinese pangolins. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. So I think it would be really nice to do a heart-opening meditation to begin. exploration of pangolins, of connection of consciousness again. If you'd like to bring up an image of one of your pangolins, Alexis, that would be lovely. And do you know the name of this pangolin?
No, I
Okay.
don't.
Okay.
But our pangolins here, the Temminck's pangolins, are bipedal, P. I think they're the only bipedal species, as far as I know. Gareth, I'm not sure if you know, but I think that they are, which means that they walk predominantly on their back feet, and the front 2 feet hover around the ground, free to scratch out and forage. So the picture that I've shared here is of a pangolin essentially standing on its back feet, and they do bring their front paws together like that. If you call them paws, front feet together like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they have that very, very human-like countenance, you know. I mean, how human-like is that?
Yeah. Okay. Everyone, if you would like to have your feet on the floor, rest your hands in your lap, and I invite you to either look at this pangolin in front of you or to close your eyes. And I wonder, Gareth, if I can invite you, if you wouldn't mind, just to keep letting people in while I close my eyes.
Sure.
Thank you, my darling. Okay. So take a nice deep breath in and gently release. Breathing in again. And gently release. One more time, breathing in. And gently release. Bring your focus down to your heart area. Placing your hand over that heart center. And think about your place in this world as one of the animal kingdom. One of the animal kingdom. And think about your place in circle with all of the other species. And beside you is pangolin. And then the circle continues round with all of the other species of this animal kingdom. And you are all supported by Mother Earth. And her beautiful ocean. And her wonderful sky. And breathe into that space of kinship. As an equal. With all of the other animal species sharing space with you at this time. And I invite you to look around the circle. looking into the eyes, into the face of the other species, perceiving who they are as you slowly work your way around. And you may feel your energy coming together as all impressions of separation fall away. And you come together as one energy, one presence. And in this moment, you are pangolin, and pangolin is you. Notice what that feels like. And then bring your awareness back to the circle again. Working your way around now in the other direction. Sensing, observing, knowing different species as you work your way around. And you may be looking them directly in their eye. Or in their body. And return now to your heart space. And if it feels like something you wish to do, emit love out, beam love out from your heart across to the entire animal kingdom, starting from yourself to yourself, and then to pangolin, and then to the rest of the animal kingdom. And you might see this as a beam of light, of a flood of light, washing over and around the entire planet of Earth. And feel into that presence where every being is loved. Gently coming back to your own heart and to your awareness of where you're sitting, standing, lying, with your feet on the earth, back into your body. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Okay. Thank you for sharing that image. We might come back to that one, Alexis, if you'd like to take that down. Thank you. Okay, gosh, that was longer than I thought. I'd like to ask you, did you do your homework? If you were here last week, if you've listened to the replay, did you do your homework? Pangolin asked you a question, which was, what is it that humanity needs to understand about the connection with wildlife and the planet and your survival? I invite you now to put what you received, the response that you received, in whatever way you received it, into the chat so that we can see that, and I might just read out a couple. So if you did do your homework, if you did address Pangolin's question, what is it that humanity needs to understand about the connection with wildlife and the planet and your survival? Pop that into the chat for me right now. And I did my homework, so I will also read out what I received. It's not very short. Okay, so we are all one. That we are one. Oh, how interesting. We are one. We are the land's wisdom keepers family. We are all one. I had no idea that people were going to be sharing that. It leads on so beautifully from that meditation. Humans and animals are all made of the same creature stuff, that we are all one. It's everyone's survival, all connected, the planet too, we're all in this together. Equality of being. You first need to love and accept yourselves, and then we will also be saved. We are one, and we need to understand this. We are individual and all one. We are all one. We are all connected. We are all love. Our survival depends on connecting with animals. We are all connected and depend upon one another for balance. We need to become humble and recognize what we can learn from wildlife and the planet and listen. We are all connected. We are all of the same spirit, so we belong together. It's a strong connection. We are all connected. We are all made from stardust. What do you think of these, Alexis and Gareth? Interesting. Aren't they wonderful?
There's a definite common theme.
There's definitely a common theme. And I'll share what I received, which when I addressed this, my response was, we are just a symptom of the dis-ease within you. We're just a symptom of the dis-ease within you.
Wow. So pangolins are a symptom of the dis-ease within us.
Humans, yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's wonderful. Do feel free to keep sharing. You will be able to save the chat, and certainly, you know, Gareth and Alexis and I will be able to then have a look at what you receive, because that's also really interesting for us. So thank you, everybody. Well done for doing your homework. Love that. Okay. Alexis, maybe we can touch a bit more on what it means to be talking with the ancient ones.
Okay, so I'm still exploring it myself, P, you know, and not understanding fully. And I think that it's going to be an ongoing journey for me. But what I did come up with from last week and the experience that I had for myself through these conversations and in the ensuing days, where my consciousness was alive, I think, to the conversations and to, you know, the energy around it, and to pangolins, which was fantastic because it's not always like that, you know. And I think it's this kind of absent going about one's work, going about one's duties and one's obligations and one's responsibilities, where you don't sort of, you know, sink down into just a conscious feeling about things. And I think that that's where communication probably lies. I'm not, you know, experienced at communicating, but these were the ideas that I had. So what came up very strongly for me was Gareth's experience as a man who was changed completely by his interaction with pangolins, which he expressed beautifully last week. And I think that Gareth's experience as you know, coming to this as a man with all the trappings of a man and the conditioning of a man and the body of a man, and, you know, all of that came with it, and, you know, who developed this softness. And for me, that softness, I think, is an essential element of it, of talking with the ancient ones. That's what's come up for me. That's certainly, I think if we could all just develop that softness, and then again, you know, it's not a wishy-washy thing. I mean, I think I have to say, first of all, while being a warrior, because we are fighting quite a formidable war while we walk with pangolins. And it's no mean feat. I mean, this is, you know, considered organized crime, the trade in pangolins, and it's you know, it links up with a trade of other wildlife in a huge way. That's right up there with human trafficking, drug trafficking, and all of those organized crime syndicates. And we have to be very careful, P, that wherever there are pangolins, we are actually exposed and quite vulnerable. And we have to have high security. We never say exactly where pangolins are being kept. So, you know, I'm saying, while being a warrior, develop softness. And I think, you know, people who might come to these conversations and think like, you know, oh, all that kind of soft spiritual stuff. And I'd like to hear more from you and from Gareth about what it means to develop these qualities when you are a warrior, and how do you create a fulcrum for all of these qualities, which need to be there, but at the same time, where you are, you know, on the front lines and in the trenches. The other thing that came to me was to show and receive kindness. And that came to me in a dream that I had, probably the night after we had these conversations, where I dreamt about, when I was living in the temple, there was a girl who was a woman who was very at odds with me, and very, she didn't like me, and there was a lot of kind of strain around our relationship. And I dreamt that she was being very kind to me, and she was cooking for me, and she was looking after me. And you know, that kindness and forgiveness. And I think forgiveness is, I mean, Gareth was talking about pangolins being so forgiving and having this quality of forgiveness. And I think that's one of the hardest ones. You know, when you think of the trade and the fact that these animals are on the brink of extinction, and you know, how do you forgive people for what they do, you know? I think that's the hardest one. So for me, kindness and forgiveness. And then create and see beauty, create beauty and see beauty. Very, very important for me. And support life wherever you see it. You know, plants are being cut, collect them and replant them. Look after a dying plant, look after an animal in trouble. So support life. And then in terms of love, and that's possibly a subject that we should get into more if we have time. For me, I go back to Erich Fromm. I don't know if you've read any of his work, P.
No.
He wrote an amazing book. He's a psychologist called The Art of Loving. And I think you can get it, but it's been out of print. And where he categorizes love, and I think for me, you know, the biggest love is the containment of all the love that you feel in relation to different things. So, you know, parent and child. So being the parent or being the child, you know, as siblings, the teacher and the pupil, being the teacher and being the pupil. So for me, the greatest love contains all of those in one sphere. It's very multi-dimensional. So, you know, that's what came up for me. Also, just what I wanted to say was, don't become what you are fighting against. And I think that that's also got to do with forgiveness and kindness. You know, it's so hard. I mean, it's so easy to become hard and hardened. And so those were the things that came up for me in talking with the ancient ones, just from our conversation last week and from my experiences after that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Gareth, would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, so I mean, just to touch on what Alexis said, I wouldn't say I changed. My understanding is the human essence doesn't change, it evolves. So yeah, I would say I've evolved through my experience with pangolins, but my essence has remained the same. It's just nitpicking, really. So for me, the talking with the ancient ones is, we have the soul group, we have this these spirits that for me are carrying the memory of the universe for as far back as 85 million years. When we're around them and we feel them and they allow themselves to be felt by us, there is, and that's where communication is for me. As I mentioned, I don't hear words, or we don't sit and chat or anything like that. I've tried, but they've never responded in that way. But for me, that's sort of been that talk that I've had with them has just been what has come to me by being in their presence and being in their aura, being in that space with them. And it obviously, you know, they're wild animals and they've been put through this traumatic experience. So it does take a level of trust for them to open up to you in that way. And that's taught me a lot of patience, It's also taught me to trust. And it's very much, for me, it's an energetic exchange with these animals. It's not something auditory. It's not something that I could describe with any of the 5 physical senses. It's an energetic exchange, and that does often take me to a place where you very much do get a sense that you are engaging with something a lot older, and just a lot closer to the source than maybe what we've got. I think in a sense, I don't think we really have to learn anything. You know, I mean, everyone's mentioning that message that comes through of oneness. I am a non-dualist, so I do see everything from a non-dual perspective. And in that sense, I think what we've got is closer to amnesia than not understanding. I think for me, I feel that we've forgotten more, and we just need to remember more than we need to learn. And I think that's been the communication that I've had with Pangolin, and that sort of talking with those ancient ones, that real sense of they're reminding me of a time that I've long forgotten.
I love listening to how you express how you communicate, putting that very loosely, with pangolins. I know. Because we can get very fixed and rigid in what we define as communication with another being, and we don't all do it the same way, and that's absolutely fine to be able to communicate in our own way. And you just do it by being present, and then these things come to you, and there's this, as you described, this exchange of energy, but there's no trying, there's no words inside your mind or anything that we might express as it's this sense or it's that sense. It's so organic for you. Literally, you are becoming, or you are just pangolin with them, really. That's what it feels like.
And I mean, interestingly, the more I try, the less it happens. I mean, it is that surrender, it's that letting go and just forgetting about it, and just, as you say, just being present.
Yeah, and how many times do I say that to people? Don't try. It's the trying when we're actually doing. You want to be being. It's like,
we're human beings, not human doings or human tryings.
Human tryings. Yeah, that's a bit like that. Going back to what you said, Alexis, about being a warrior and on the front line. All I would say about that, the way that I work, it's not all light and fluffy and I'm going to communicate with a dog, I'm going to communicate with a horse, and all of that, because often these animals are going through some level of trauma or misunderstanding, behavioral, emotional, physical concerns. They're lost, they're scared, and sometimes animals tell me the most horrific things that have happened to them, often before their current family adopted them. And the reason I'm still here 16 years later, I think, is because I have found a emotional strength in my work where I will not turn away from an animal in pain. I will not turn away from anything they express to me, however horrific it is, because what's more important to me is actually being present for them and letting them express those things, because I might be the only being that they are able to express that to. And as much as a human going for counseling feels often lighter and more relieved after having been heard by a counselor, it's a lot of the communications I have with animals is along those lines, rather than just, does my pretty dog want a bed that's red or a bed that's blue? It's, I tend to not attract those kind of clients. But it wasn't always that way. like you, Gareth, you know, I've evolved. It started simply, and then as I got more experienced and stronger emotionally and found ways to reset myself back into love and grounding again from the experiences. So in order to keep moving forward and not be taken down by them, harder things started to come my way. And I think that's just the way things work. You know, I think that I just see that as the way the universe works, the way the animal kingdom works, that when we are in service, and that's the path we've chosen, that for me on a personal level, the experiences that I've had constantly help me grow and extend out of that comfort zone. Just when I think I've got to the edge of my comfort zone now, it's like, no, it's right over there. You've got to do this now, you know. And then the whole self-sabotage comes in, go, who am I to do that? But then you go, well, who else? You know, why not? And if it works out, then obviously I'm the person to do it, if I have the means, etc. So that's, go on.
Yeah, no, sorry, I was just going to say, I mean, just two things. I was going to mention, you know, how Alexis talks about how, you know, we're in this sort of this warrior space. But before I do say that, I've always said evolution will meet you at whatever level you're at. So as much as you think, okay, well, yeah, now I'm untouchable, you know, evolution will meet you there. But just, you know, with being in a warrior space, it's funny because I went pangolin almost took me backwards. Well, in reality, they took me forward because I was very strong in that warrior space. I mean, you know, when I sort of originally thought, okay, I'm gonna, you know, I want to see pangolins, I want to get involved and everything like that. It was very much from that sort of place of, oh, I'm going to save pangolin and I'm going to fight for pangolin and everything like that. And I'm going to save pangolins. And I think what's been interesting for me is how they have sort of been more my savior than I have theirs, maybe. And they've taken me out of that warrior space. And they've moved me into a far more nurturing and loving space than that confrontational. And I mean, I still go on sting operations where, you know, we arrest the poachers and everything like that. And I still do get some sort of a thrill out of that experience. And I mean, it's a very highly charged environment, but for me, I gravitate more towards just spending hours and hours on end following a pangolin around and just being in complete awe of this animal for hours on end.
I want to ask Gareth something. Gareth, have you ever been angry with a pangolin?
Yes. I haven't been angry, but I have been frustrated. I very quickly realized that what that was they're releasing their frustration, and my willingness to sympathetic heal that. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously with the trauma and everything like they've gone through, I mean, when we're holding these little pangolins and they want to run around on the ground and we've got to move them to a safer area, we were walking or something like that, they get frustrated. And I think the couple of times that I have, and now I'm very aware of it. So when it happens, I immediately know, okay, you're frustrated. It's not actually me. They're using me as a way to sort of dump their frustration on.
Would it be that they're dumping their frustration on you, or that you're feeling their frustration so that you're kind of identifying it as your own?
Well, yeah, there is that. I definitely, I do get more of a sense from them that, you know, I'm obviously so sympathetic when I'm with them and I'm in such a conscious space of being a healing presence around them, that I think they understand that, yeah, okay, he's willing to take that on. If I want to just get rid of this quickly, he'll take it on. But there is that, you know, they'll obviously test you. And I think, yeah, there definitely is that degree of, okay, wait, this is also showing me my own frustration, without a doubt. I mean, if we don't have a point of reference for something within us, it doesn't exist outside of us. So yeah.
I want to tell you a funny story about a time when I got really angry with a pangolin. P, if there's time for that.
I think P got up to
Oh,
sort out a dog or someone, answer a door, maybe collect another package.
all right. So I'll tell you the story. It was right in the sort of early days when we first started walking pangolins, and you know, we hadn't sort of evolved to the transport boxes, and pangolins, as you will know, Gareth, and anybody that's dealt with them, are escape artists. So they're very, very determined to get out of a situation that they don't want to be in, to the extent where they can injure themselves quite badly. So I was walking a pangolin, and I had him in a canvas transport box in my car. It was a transport carrier, canvas carrier. And we were up at the property where we walk pangolins, you know where I mean. And it's right on the top of the hill, and there was a Transvaal high-felt storm pending. And being up there with all the thunder and lightning, and any South African will know what those Transvaal thunderstorms are like. And it started threatening, and I don't remember the name of the pangolin, but he was a big male pangolin. And I had to quickly carry him to the car, and I was really struggling. I mean, he must have been, you know, 10 kgs, and I was struggling, and he was like clawing me, and he wanted to get out of my arms, and I was sort of stumbling down the hill, and I eventually got him into the transport box, and we started driving back to the hospital, and he just slowly pulled open the transport box with his claws, you know, and got out of the transport box, and he was free ranging around in the car. And by this stage was just pouring with rain. I mean, I couldn't see a meter in front of me. So we got back to the hospital, and I left my lights on so that I could see the hospital door, and I shut the door and left the keys in the car and ran to the hospital to open the door, and then back to the car, and he was free ranging around the outside of the car, outside sort of perimeter of the inside of the car. And he stepped on the automatic lock system. So the whole car was locked with my keys in the car and pouring with rain. Pouring. And I had to go and find one of the other volunteers who lives on the property and ask her to please come and help me. And it was about 8 o'clock at night. It was pouring with rain, and we had to get a hanger. Anybody who's ever tried to break into a car will know the system. I don't know if it's just South Africans who know it, but we had to try and open the lock of the car. And you know, these locks are smooth at the top, and to get a hanger properly in position through a tiny gap in the window, and then hook the button and get it up so that I could unlock it. We were literally in the pouring rain for an hour, and he was just happily free ranging in the car. So I was furious with him. So that's, anyway, I was just thinking about that story tonight.
He was probably having a good laugh. You're getting so bad, though.
I was like, don't be so stupid. Look what you've done.
Oh my Lord. Okay, so this would be a great time, wouldn't it, to share a picture of Stevie, I think, and talk about him. Let's talk about a specific pangolin that you both know and work with. Just briefly, because then it'd be great to get to Q&A, because I think people have questions, things that they'd like to share. So just let's have a little quick look at.
Okay, so I'm not sure that I've got a picture of Stevie here, but I'm going to share a picture of a very young pangolin. It was a pangolin that Nikki raised, whose name was Tot, and that's Tot.
Oh,
And she raised Tot from just about from birth because the mother was too compromised to look after her. So we had to remove Tot from the mother and then start to hand raise her, which Nikki did a brilliant job. She was scale perfect, absolutely magnificent. But Gareth, if you could talk a little bit about Stevie just over that picture.
can I just ask, before you do that, Gareth, how old is this pangolin?
Well, she's still got the umbilical cord attached. She must be about a week old.
Oh gosh, okay, thank you.
And Gareth will know Tot as well. I actually had a fantastic connection with Tot. She was very, very, very kind to me, Tot. She engaged with me in such a loving way, and on the two times that I met her, and in fact, just before Tot was taken for soft release, by chance, Nikki invited me over again to see her, and I got one last chance to interact with Tot, and she was just she sniffed at my nose and she sniffed at my face, and she allowed me to be very close to her. Gareth?
Yeah, I also obviously spent a little bit of time with Tot. It was just, I mean, it was obviously just incredible. The bond that her and Nikki had was just, I mean, it was just unbelievable. That level of intimacy that the two of them had was just incredible. Yeah. And I mean, obviously you mentioned Stevie. So Stevie was a pangolin that I'll be quick because I think it would be nice to get to the Q&A. Stevie was a pangolin that we rescued from poachers. He was probably about 2 or 3 months old. So he still would have been very heavily reliant on his mother. He came to the Joburg Wildlife Vet, and thankfully he took to bottle feeding. Kelsey, the vet, at that time, she took him on as her baby, and that meant, I mean, she was taking him home every night. She was waking up whatever hours of the morning to bottle feed him during the entire night. And then I had the privilege of pretty much being his daytime carer and his walker, and sort of introducing him to nature and the wild. And yeah, I mean, for me, it was an incredible experience, primarily because what it did do is it opened up a nurturing side of me that I really wasn't fully aware of, and that was quite something. But then also a big part of that was because I spent so much time with him, and he was seeing everything for the first time. You know, he was seeing certain ant species for the first time. He was learning how to roll around. He was learning how to climb things and everything like that. What that allowed me to do with the closest of connection that we had was very much start seeing the world through his eyes. And it gave me a very fresh perspective on nature, on everything within nature, everything from the ants to the trees to the earth, all of it. Seeing his almost bewilderment with everything allowed me to be just as bewildered by everything. And that was something incredible, because I think as we grow up and we go to school and we're told that this is what you got to think, this is how we define success, you know, we get put in these boxes throughout our lives. We get brought up and we get put in these boxes. And being with this completely wild and free soul, he just couldn't care less what I was bringing in other than my presence and who I really, really was. He didn't care what car we jumped in to drive to and back from the walking sites or anything like that. He didn't care how good looking my girlfriend was or none of it. He just cared about me, and I just cared about him. In that, it just allowed this incredibly fresh outlook. And I think that allowed a deeper connection with nature than I've ever had. Because I didn't have that sort of very, very subjective, okay, this is what I've been told about nature, this is what nature allows, this is what reality doesn't allow, and everything like that. It was just exploring it as it was. And it was exploring it more from a heart space than a head space, because I was so endeared to this little animal and so connected to this little animal. I wasn't worried, I wasn't thinking, I wasn't analyzing things, I wasn't trying to intellectualize things. I was just there in my heart with him. And nature responds a lot more to the heart than it does the head. So that was a good lesson. And yeah, so that was Stevie.
Gareth, can I ask you something? I mean, I know that Stevie really loved you as well. And he was particularly attached to you. And I'm not sure that anybody else sort of, that he kind of allowed anybody else to be with him the way that he allowed you to be with him. Obviously, he was very used to you, and you know, you know, the relationship was formed over time. But what were the ways that he showed you that he really cared about you?
It's a good question. He was present for me. That's all I can say. As much as I was present for him, he, you know, if I was doing something, walking around or something, he would wait for me. Just like if I was walking up ahead, flipping over rocks, trying to look for ants and termites and all of that kind of thing. You know, I would wait and I would call him and he would come, and I would wait for him, and vice versa. He would wait for me. If he had gone charging off somewhere while I was busy looking for ants and termites somewhere else, you know, he would eventually just be sitting there waiting for me to catch up. So I think, I mean, in terms of expressing love, it is difficult. And I actually had this conversation with my teacher just this week on animals' ability to actually express love. And you know, my teacher was saying we have a tendency to humanize things, and we have a tendency to humanize animals, and we label them in accordance with our sort of humanness, and we expect them to have these human traits. And my experience is, without a doubt, animals love us. For some people, it's not, and that's fine. It would be a very boring world if we all had the same opinion. But I think for me, I think I might have said it in the first talk. For me, love is the recognition of our shared being. And as much as I recognized my shared being with Stevie, that was very much a two-way path. And he very much recognized his shared being in me.
That's so beautiful. I think that's a great segue to Q&A now. Gareth, thank you. I think it'd be nice to open it up to everybody. So if anybody has a question, go down to reactions and raise your hand, and I'll come to you. We'll just try to we'll try and get through as many as we can. I know that there's one here which we could answer probably quite quickly. Was can pangolins sing or purr?
Pangolins do not have vocal cords, so they don't sing, they don't purr. However, what I've seen, I don't know if you've seen it, Alexis, is and it's generally males, the females don't do it, but if a male comes into close proximity with another pangolin, they sort of hiss through their nose, so it's a, so that's, but I mean, that's not a sign of admiration or any sort of endearance. That's that's an intolerance.
Yeah, don't come near me, mate.
Yeah.
Okay, what other questions do we have? I know you've got loads of them because some of you have been sending them to me, so do raise your hand, your digital hand, under reactions, or put it in the chat if you're shy, and I can read it out if you don't want to come on camera. That would be good. Oh, what was Gareth's word? Something being. Trying being. It was a trying being. We're not.
I said we're human beings. We're not trying beings.
Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. Did I say that?
Yeah, you said we're not trying beings.
We're not human tryings.
Not human tryings. Okay, here's a question from Jackie. Was Stevie released into the wild?
Yes, Stevie is now free. He is in the wild. He is been at his new home, which is on a private game reserve in KZN, and he's been there for, wow, almost a year. I took him down there on the 10th of December last year, I think.
KZN.
KwaZulu-Natal.
Thank you.
Sorry. I just
assumed
everyone's from South Africa.
Share the love with everybody. Okay, Jeff, you've got your hand up. There you go.
A quick one. Firstly, I mean, all that, Alexis and Gareth, that you've actually managed to touch and hold pangolins, and I'm keen to know what they feel like. Sort of are their tummies soft and tactile, like sort of like stroking a kitten's tummy, and what do their scales feel like? Just kind of talk us through what it feels like to hold them, and because they seem like there are two parts to them: this very soft underbelly and this kind of harder outer shell.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Alexi.
Hi. Gareth?
Well, you've held more different species of pangolin than I have. So is that across the board?
Yeah, they have got that very soft underbelly, which is lovely, and the fine hairs, and I love the body of pangolins, all of their bodies. I just have to look at, say, one of the front paws of one of the pangolins I looked after, Oko, in the Central African Republic, and the white-bellied pangolins have got these fine hairs on the top of their front paws, and I just have to look at a photograph of his front paw with those fine hairs, and my heart just bursts open, And I think, that's one of the things is for me is that I just love the body of pangolins. I love what they look like. And And because I worked with 2 young pups, a white and black-bellied pangolin, and there weren't ordinary rehabilitation facilities there, so I slept with both of them in the same bed. Well, not together. When I was looking after the black-bellied, I would sleep with her, and then when I was looking after the white-bellied, I would sleep with him. And yeah, I mean, that intimacy with those animals is just unbelievable. And then, of course, also they're crazy mavericks. You know, all animals are just crazy mavericks, and you know, I love the circus. I love watching them being their crazy selves as well. But the soft underbelly and then the scales, which you think will be very hard, are actually, you have a sense that when you feel the scales, that's being felt sort of by the pangolin, you know, underneath. Yeah, I mean, the you know, that beautiful soul is there, you know, just looking into their eyes and relating on a soul level. For me, is beautiful with any animal. And Pangy was very special for me, the black-bellied pangolin, because as I said on last week, you know, it took me a while to get to know her and for us to become close. And then when Orko arrived, who was the white-bellied pangolin, whose both of their mothers were victims of the bushmeat trade. But when Orko arrived, he was much, much younger, and I was asked to take full-time care of Orko. And the other volunteer that was there was looking after Pangy, and I missed Pangy terribly. And right at the end, on the final day, I got to go and see Pangy again, and she'd already stopped being bottle fed. She was completely weaned onto ants. She had a funny way of when she wanted a bottle, in fact, they both did it, she would scratch my sort of middle finger of my palm with her long claw. It was a funny thing, but that's what she said when she wanted a bottle. She would sort of scratch the inside of my hand. And when I went to see her, she immediately started scratching my hand in that way, and she'd already been fully weaned. And I said to Rod, Pangy wants a bottle. And he said, but she's not taking a bottle anymore. She's not bottle feeding it. He said, you can give her a bottle with some water in it. And so I filled up a bottle of water, and she immediately, I think I've got a picture of it, she immediately flipped onto her back and started sucking on the bottle in a very, very babyish way. Well, this is one picture of Pangy when I first got there, bottle feeding.
Mm.
And I think I've got another one of Pangy as well. On that last day, I wonder if I've got it here. Let me just have a look.
While you look for that, can I ask Alexis and Gareth whether you are aware of a pangolin with something going on with their left paw at the moment?
Gareth?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had a pangolin come to me earlier before we started this meeting that kept showing me their left paw. Let me know if it makes sense to you at any point.
I will, definitely, if it does. I'm just trying to think. No. Yeah, so just from my side, Jeff, just one of the most amazing things is, yeah, they've got the soft underbelly, but every single scale, I mean, their defense is to roll into a ball. Essentially, they roll into this impenetrable ball. Lions can bite down on them, hyenas will open up little ones, but a full adult pangolin, not even a lion or hyena, will be able to bite through that. That is an impenetrable ball. And their scales are quite sharp on the edge. So it's just this perfect little structure. yeah, and they're tough. They are incredibly tough little animals. If they don't want to be held, they can hurt you. So I mean, we say that they're completely defenseless, and you know, humans are their only threat. Once you've been swatted on by one's tail hard enough, they're not completely defenseless. Look, it's not going to deter anything. It's not going to deter poachers or traffickers or anything like that. But I mean, just that sort of gives you a sense of, yeah, they've got this incredible softness underneath, and it's soft to the touch. It's like almost silky smooth. Their bellies are almost silky smooth. And yeah, they've just got this incredibly tough exterior.
And also, oh, where's it gone? Jackie was saying, so the scales remind me of artichoke leaves. I wonder if they are similar texture.
I don't know what artichoke leaves are textured.
They're not as soft as that. They're hard. They're very soft at birth, like that picture of Tot, but then they start to harden from day one. And they you know, the reason that we only put a pangolin into a soft release process at a certain weight is because at that point they are also capable of defending themselves from predators, and the scales are tough enough so when they do roll into a ball that they can't be predated on. So yes, the scales become very hard, like nails.
Yeah, I wondered if it was more like nails.
Yeah, so it's the same sort of texture as your nail. I mean, if you could imagine your fingernail, but maybe 2 millimeters thick and very, very hard, and I mean, that's similar. I mean, it is, they are creatine. So, I mean, the scales of the made are the exact same thing as our fingernails.
This is a picture of Oko, the little white-bellied pangolin being fed. That syringe had a miracle nipple on it, and which is what you use for feeding small mammals like squirrels. And that was in the middle of the night sometime. He was nocturnal, and you can see how tiny they are, Gareth. I mean, how small is that?
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Talking about that bottle, so Rosemary says, what do you feed them from the bottle? What's actually in the bottle?
Milk. They're mammals, but it's a special formula that we get, and also pangolins are although they're in their own order called Pholidota, because they are the only mammal with scales, which is interesting. The only mammal with scales, and they do have a really prehistoric look about them as well, you know, like dragons or dinosaurs, or very magical in that way. They come from the line of cats, not dogs, interestingly. So they are, so whatever you could do, you know, medicines that were okay for a cat would be fine to use on a pangolin, whereas other medicines you couldn't necessarily use. They come from a feline origin.
Yeah, gotcha. Sandra says, Gareth, have you seen Stevie since his release? Did he come running up to you? She thinks we need to write a book about you, the Stevie and Gareth book, and then also a film.
Yes and yes, and no and yes. So yes, I have. I went. Saw him for the first time in almost a year, only a few years, there a couple of weeks ago. And that was for a project that we are working on. So
there's a film in the offering, is there?
I won't say anything.
Well, we know there is now. We know there's something happening.
I didn't say that.
You didn't say it. We intuited it. Okay.
What did he do, Gareth?
He walked up to me and he wrapped himself around my leg and he wouldn't let go for about 15 minutes. It was interesting. Yeah. I mean, he seemed very determined to show me how strong he was.
I was going to say.
I think it's very possible that he interpreted my, I wouldn't say worry or concern. Maybe, you know, I think when you release an animal like that back into the wild, you always sort of think like, although no matter what happened to him, his journey is his journey, irrespective of whether it went in what we would interpret as well or badly. I think he just sort of, he knew to just reassure me and show me how strong he was.
I remember when Stevie was finally sort of released after a long soft release process that you were involved with, Gareth, because we don't sort of throw pangolins that have been retrieved from the illegal trade back into the wild. They're all compromised and they go through a procedure of veterinary intervention and CAT scans and bloods and all kinds of things. And especially because a pangolin that you would think looks okay or behaves okay often has very, very bad blood. So they have to get the absolutely veterinary all clear. And then when you release them do a soft release into an area, they need to be able to identify food and burrows and become acclimatized to the area and make it their home territory again, because they've been removed from that. So it's a long process, especially with a pangolin like Stevie, who was very young. And I remember, Gareth, when they left Stevie out overnight for the first night, I remember you saying, I don't want to know any details. I just want to know, is he okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So, practical question here. Are pangolin essentially solitary? And how long do the babies stay with their mother?
Yes, and we don't know. So because of the project that the African Pangolin Working Group is now set up in KZN, KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, where they've reintroduced these populations and they've now had successful breeding, this will be pretty much the first time that babies are being monitored. What we're seeing is that they're staying with their mothers, or at least around their mothers and interacting with their mothers for a lot longer than I think anyone thought. Maybe they are solitary, so they have territories that they'll set up close to each other, but they don't necessarily want to hang out in the same burrow. Yeah, we don't really know yet how long the babies stay with their mom. It could be anything up to a year, maybe even longer. I think. Alexis, do you know?
No, yeah, I think they would be weaned and start moving away from the mother. And again, we don't know at what age, but possibly at 5 or 6 months, but they would stay in the mother's home range, possibly up to a year, especially if it's a female.
Okay. And how long is their lifespan in the wild, generally, if they're not being poached?
Good question. We don't know for sure. We would, I mean, from what I've spoken to everyone about and all the scientists and the experts, it's pretty similar, and I think Alexis can confirm, to that of a medium-sized dog. So in and around maybe 15 years.
Or possibly a cat, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Charlotte's got an interesting question. So, have you seen any difference in the last few years with all the energy changes on Earth? Have you noticed any differences with the pangolin?
Alexis, have you?
I can't say. I can't say. You know, as you know, Gareth, I haven't spent a lot of time in the presence of pangolins for a while, and it's something that I really need to do again to revive, you know, my kind of emotional connection.
So I haven't really seen any sort of difference. I haven't seen them act differently. I mean, I've only been around pangolins for the last 4 years, so I don't really have that much of a time frame. They have become a lot more prevalent within human consciousness. I mean, there's more discussion happening now about pangolins than ever before. They were coincidentally at the beginning of the coronavirus labeled as, I think, one of the vectors. So I think from an energetic perspective, I think they are making themselves more known.
And I think that you know, as you said, Gareth, it's interesting them being at the center of this illegal trade. You know, whether they've chosen to be or we've chosen them to be, but
Oh, it's frozen.
Oh no.
Oh no, just in mid-flow as well.
what they bring to this, which
Alexis,
is that
we lost you there, darling. You froze.
yeah, feminine. Okay, I
Start
think, you know,
again.
what okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think that it's interesting, you know, what we discussed last week about pangolins and, you know, whether they chose to be at the center of this illegal trade as the most trafficked mammal on the planet. I mean, it's crazy. This mammal is the most trafficked mammal on the planet. And what they bring to this and what they're teaching through this and what we need to learn by it. And the fact that that spiral, you know, the golden ratio, that spiral, the Fibonacci, and the fact that it's a reflection of the universals of the universe, you know. That is, if you see photographs of the universe that have been captured by NASA and you know, you see that spiral in the universe. And it's, for me, and I think, Gareth, you made the differentiation between the bigger species like rhinos, for example, that almost have a spear or a sword on their nose, and the fact that pangolins bring with them this very, very feminine quality, and that what you've had to cultivate in yourself is probably that feminine quality. I don't know how you feel about that or what you would say about that.
I would say it's balance. For me, a pangolin, I mean, and that's, if you look at the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence and everything, it's perfect balance, it's perfect harmony. If you look, I mean, as you said, a pangolin's bipedal. So that perfect balance of their tail and their upper body, that for me is significant of that balance. And, you know, I think I saw a question pop up. What would the message for pangolin be to humanity? I think they've got a lot to say to us, but one thing would very much be balance, and that sort of harmony of balance. And I'll definitely say the other one is forgiveness. But yeah, so I think for me it is, and I think that's sort of my journey with them has been this very much coming to this equanimity and this balance within myself, just from being in their presence.
And I think even the scales, you know, the hard and the soft, you know, the again, you know, that counter counterbalance, you know. And I know that David Pinault, I think, who's just come in, had a question last week that we couldn't get round to. David, would you like to ask your question? I'm just aware that you had a question from last week, and we stopped at that point.
Maybe if he's only just come in, he doesn't.
Yeah.
So give him chance. While David's figuring out the question, if you want to ask that, David. What about this one? About Gareth, your spiritual practice. Where is it? It's gone somewhere. What spiritual practice does Gareth recommend?
All of them.
All in
Yeah, I mean, I'm the antithesis of, I'm non-denominational at all. I mean, I'll take it from wherever I can get it. If it's from Pangolin or Buddha or whatever, Hinduism, all of it. I think we'll just naturally gravitate to whatever suits us at whatever time. I don't think it's a sort of a fixed thing. And I think that's quite a challenge that we have in today's society, is we get very fixed into one doctrine, and that has the potential to close us down. So yeah, all of them.
And I think that P, I know that you had some communication with pangolins earlier, and I'd really like to hear what that was. But I think that one of the things that stayed with me, Gareth, was when someone asked, "What can we do?" And you said, "Just go into the garden and sit there, and it'll come to you." You know.
Yeah.
I like that answer.
Yeah, I mean, we need to reconnect. Well, I think we need to amplify. We can't disconnect, otherwise we wouldn't exist. I mean, if disconnect existed, we wouldn't. So I think we need to just amplify our connection, and I think by doing that, we indirectly influence the people around us, and we amplify their connection with nature.
Maybe Rita's question, and then P, will you just read to us what the communication was?
I will go there. Before I go there, there's something else I'd like to do, but yeah, let's go to Rita first. There you are, my love. Can you do that?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, honey.
Well, thank you so much for all you do for the pangolins. My heart aches for the pangolins and many other species, of course, that we're having issues with. My question surrounds, well, what can we really do? We talk about it. You know, our group, it's hard to reach outside to the rest of the world. And in the coming years, I mean, if we have the population that we're projecting in the future, we're going to take more land and need more stuff. So how do we get back in control? Where do we start the education? I mean, it almost should be in preschool, you know, that we start talking about these things, because I send money, I mean, all of it. But, you know, it's not really changing everything that we'd like it to. So you know, there has to be a way that we have to get connected with ourselves and our experience with nature and commune with it.
That's the bottom line for me.
We get asked this question all the time about different animals, different species, and the answer that I have for this is always we start at home. You know, that man in the mirror. We start with ourselves, because our vibration and what we're putting out into the field is one of the most important things. That is how we elevate consciousness. There are practical things we can do, of course, on top of that, but our what is the word? It's not regulation.
Realization?
Whatty?
Realization?
No, not that either. It's not even a self-awareness. It's something else that might come to me.
Transformation.
No, not that one. Maybe it's whatever is coming to all of you individually right now. I really feel through my work with animals is that what I've been learning from them is that I have to take responsibility for my frequency, my energy, my response, because if we truly believe that everything is energy, if we truly believe in quantum physics and that we are the universe and the universe is us, then everything we do, everything we say, the emotions that we embody, the joy we bring into the world, or the pain we feel and then try to overcome that pain, work through that pain to find our way back to joy again. All of these things are the most important, because it feeds the field. And then that affects the other human beings and the language we use with other human beings. We can literally be our own, compassion leaders out in the world in order for other humans to learn from us. And maybe not instantly, maybe they have to see that compassion in action 5, 10, 20 times before their frequency with themselves is able to make a shift in order for them to embody compassion in the world instead. That's my answer. Anybody else?
I think that nature is going to show us the way, whatever that's going to be. And I mean, for myself, I don't know which way it's going to go. I mean, we say that pangolins have possibly 10 years, depending on what happens with the trade. And if I'm alive at the time, how I feel about it. And I think for me at this point in time, I feel like I'm a fatalist, that whatever happens, happens. I can't change it all, but I feel like I've got a moral responsibility to do what I'm doing as a human being. And that's it. That's all I can relate to, identify with. I don't have control over what happens in the future.
I think I share sort of a similar sort of sentiment to that, Alexis, because I think one of the consequences of this disconnection or this sort of separation that we've created with nature is we've almost elevated ourselves to the point that we almost think that we can outthink the mind that created us. And we have the sort of almost omnipotent control over the environment and everything like that around us. I'm not saying that we don't have an effect on it. I'm not saying that we can't live in harmony with it. But my feeling is very much we're just as part of all of this as pangolin is. We're all playing our role and we're all playing it perfectly. I think we forget that, I mean, this little life cycle that we're having at this point in time is, I think, what was once explained to me is the entire human story is 1/100000th of a pinhead in the scope of known time. 1/10000000th of a pinhead. Now, to think that we're somehow coming in here in the last few thousand years and we're just going to have this astronomical change in the course of the entire universal consciousness, I think is a little bit egoic. But at the same time, I do feel like we need to return to a more harmonious way with nature. And I think nature will sort it out for us.
What I'd like to do now is just to invite everyone to put into the chat, what do you feel are the teachings of pangolin? What have you learned from pangolin? What do you feel are the teachings of pangolin? What have you learned from them? It would be great to see what has come to you. So just type it into the chat when you've settled on something. Unconditional love, compassion, forgiveness, compassion, kindness, love and forgiveness, love and balance. To listen and live from the heart, to pay deep attention to everything, generosity, intuition, vulnerability, all starts with me daily in my life. To heal, be healed, keep healing, be true, tolerance and forgiveness, love, balance, be present, presence, connections, forgiveness. You can survive whatever happens and still give love. Courage, warrior energy, wisdom, forgiveness, fearless, kindness, gentleness, acceptance, fragility, precognitive praise of the Creator. Balance your tough side with your soft self. Be strong but soft. Or humor, duality in everything except all of who you are. Yin and yang, the heartful warrior, forgiveness and humility. Fabulous. Thank you so much, everybody. So Charlotte, I think it was you asked what Pangolin's message was to humanity, and I was going to do this live asking Pangolin to give you a message, and that might still happen, but what did happen about an hour before we came to this gathering is that I felt this strong message to sit still and quiet and to get my book out, and actually that's when Pangolin wanted to speak. And this is Pangolin's message for you. For you, this group, everybody on the replays, everyone that's engaging with this is what Pangolin has to say to you. We are earth creatures because we sensitize the earth. Nowhere in our time has this been done as much as it is now. Do not feel sorry for us. The energy is not useful. Be kind, be loving, be strong. Enjoy your life. Bring joy into our creation. Release the fears, the barriers, the pain. Do not feel sorry for us. We are strong and fluid. We respect your gains, your transgressions. We know who you are. You are learning and growing, quite slow, quite steady. Do not feel sorry for us. Learn to live in love, in truth, in harmony. That's what came earlier, and maybe they wanted to share that before this meeting, actually, because it's quite interesting that a lot of what they communicated is actually what you've been sharing and what we've been discussing. I know that we're running over a little bit. If you're able to stay for another 5-10 minutes, that would be beautiful. Anything you want to comment on that, Alexis or Gareth?
So something that's really become, I don't want to say obvious, but something that has become very obvious to me is, you know, we have this narrative at the moment, and I think this is very much sort of echoing what you said and what Pangolin said, and don't feel sorry for us. And everyone's saying, what can we do? How do we help and everything like that? And we're very much stuck in a narrative at the moment where we're energizing the thing that we don't want. So we use turn of phrases like, imagine a world without, you know, and you see it all the time on TV and everything like that. Imagine a world without rhino, imagine a world without pangolin. And that's exactly, we're energizing a failed future when we do that. We need to change our language. We need to stop putting out sorrow. And I think for me, that's what that message was from Pangolin. When they say, don't feel sorry for us. If we're putting out and we're energizing that sorrow and directing that sorrow towards them, then we're energizing that. So we need to imagine a world with, and we need to start talking. When we say, what can we do? I think we need to start talking about a world with, and imagining and energizing a world with everything that we want to see. It's not just pangolins, it's with harmony between each other. Yeah.
I so agree. I so agree that we need to definitely envision, meditate on, write about, think about, mantra about, sing about, all these things, dance about it, everything that we want. It's another strong message from the animal kingdom. What do you want? If you know, different species will ask, what do you want? Focus on that. And that's how the universe responds as well.
I mean, I'm assuming an animal has never asked you what you don't want.
No.
No.
Quite.
Yeah.
Alexis, anything?
I want to read through that again, P. I think everything that Gareth and you have said is wonderful, and I want to look at all of that again. And I think, yeah, it's powerful. Don't feel sorry for us is, whew, mind blowing.
And when I was receiving that from them, it was so strong. I could not, mistake that message. Do not feel sorry for us. And they repeated it 3 times. And what I feel is that when something shows up 3 times, that's the thing to really pay attention to.
You know, it was interesting for me during your meditation, P. And I haven't cried for years and years. I mean, I think the older we get, the less we cry, probably. But in the meditation, that pangolin, the bipedal pangolin, with his hands together, almost in prayer and in an sort of listening and being so aware and open and inquiring, in his stance. And I just had a very strong feeling of pangolin next to me, putting his arm around me and then both arms around me. Almost sort of telling me that it's okay, And I just felt, my heart open, and actually tears started flowing. And just because, in a sense, I think we go through a lot, and it's, one doesn't often, feel care and feel supported and feel understood and just sort of feel held. And I felt very held by pangolins in that meditation.
Jem, I think David's asking a question, and is he going to get cut off?
No,
please ask your question. There you go, if you'd like to.
So much of a question as just a comment, and I wanted to say thank you, first of all, to you, P, and Alexis and Gareth, for your comments and wisdom. Very much appreciated. Thank you for putting this together. And I just wanted to just share a reflection, basically. I don't know if any of you has heard of a group called Pro Fauna Indonesia, based on the island of Java. And Rozek Nashahed is someone who founded the group. He's a Muslim animal rights activist who started the group in 1994, faced a lot of hostility and actually, beatings by the police and things like this when he first started his animal rescue group in Indonesia. And when I started volunteering with Rozek and Pro Fauna years ago, I was struck by one thing in particular when I was doing the volunteer rescue work with him. And, and I guess sort of to sum up, as an outsider, as a Westerner, if you like, I was, ready to bring, a kind of a sense of guilt and so forth at what industrialization and so forth, all the havoc that we've wrought. And he said, well, thing to keep in mind on the other side, he said, is that, in Indonesia, for example, when it comes to observing butterflies, we'll just say something like kupu kuning or yellow butterfly. The nuanced vocabulary for describing the butterflies, the monarchs and the swallowtails and so forth, he says that all comes out of the West. In other words, he said, there's an exchange that takes place across cultures. And sometimes what comes out of the West is not all bad, and it's important, sometimes to take a small step towards forgiving ourselves and to realize that we're all part of a conversation. And that applies to, I think, across species as well. It's surprising sometimes the kinds of interactions that we can have with people in other cultures and then also across species with animals. Along those lines, I particularly recommend a book by an Australian ethnographer named Marcus Baines-Rock, Among the Bone Eaters, Encounters with Hyenas in Harar. And it's so interesting because of the fact that, as he says, hyenas are not necessarily everyone's favorite charismatic animal. And where he did his work in Ethiopia, a lot of people, understandably, loathe, despise, and fear hyenas. He spent basically 18 months living in the town of Harar. And I won't spoil it for you. It's a fascinating personal odyssey. But if you're interested in animal communications across species, it's an astounding book. And he's very open, vulnerable, very frank in what he says about the prejudices that he brought and what he had to learn from the hyenas. And then at the same time, across cultures, what he learned from the local people. And then to his own surprise, the fact that local folks had things to learn from him. And he says with all humility, because of the fact that he had made himself vulnerable to the hyenas. I mean, literally putting his arm out there to be bitten if they were going to choose to do that.
David, just show us, I know we're really running over time. Just show us the title of that book again, and then we're gonna move on. What is it? Among the Bone Eaters.
Yeah, I think you'll, but thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Okay. I want to respect everybody's time. So if you would like to stay in touch to learn more about African Pangolin Working Group and the work that Alexis and Gareth are doing, how the pangolins are going, one way you can do that is by going to, in fact, could you just type it into the chat? Alexis, can you do that fairly easily? It's africanpangolin.org/contact-us. But if you go to africanpangolin.org, you can easily, there we go. Or you can email africanpangolin.org as well. And then you can be invited to be in the loop with everything that the group is doing. I would say, one way to really help pangolins is to raise awareness. I know some of you put that into the chat, so please do share the link to talking to the ancient ones on your social media. Share it across all your social media, share it on in your email list if you have any, with your friends. People can still sign up because they can watch the replays. So that's really, really helpful. The other thing, if you want to stay in this frequency where we are listening to different species of the animal kingdom, you are invited to become a member of the Pride, which is my animal wisdom membership. I know that we have quite a few Pride members here listening and who have registered. And the way that works is that a different species comes forward each month and communicates with the group. I have no say on who that is, they decide. And it's quite a journey, you know. There's great transformation that happens. There's a lot of healing that happens. It's very interesting to learn who these different species really are and what they feel, what they're going through, and what they want from us, if anything at all. I'd also say, you know, as Gareth suggested, you know, sit outside, sit with your back up against a tree. And if you really need to ask the question, what can I do for pangolins? And see what comes to you. What can I do for pangolins? And be completely open to any kind of feeling, response, gut knowing that you get in return. Gareth, would you like to say anything?
I think it's just while you were saying that, I was sort of thinking, yeah, it's the best way to do it is exactly what you said. Ask, go sit quietly outside, connect with nature and ask what you can do. I mean, 4 years ago, I was more concerned about what golf club I was gonna buy next week than anything to do with nature. So I mean, if someone like me can go from being pretty much just only concerned with materialism and, you know, the very sort of mundane and profane world to this incredible experience that I've had over the last 4 years, then I don't really see why anyone else can't do it either.
Fabulous. Thank you. Alexis.
Yeah, I mean, everything I got was from my garden. That's where it all started, really. And I give thanks to my garden for that. Massive thanks. And yeah, I just want to thank everybody for a meaningful, honest sharing. And who could want anything more than to sit in a conversation like this together and just speak, you know. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Alexis, and thank you, Gareth.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, P.
I think there will be much more, you know, conversations like this happening actually as people are interested, they're engaged, you know, as we all want to, you know, know more and to figure out individually, what can I do to help raise consciousness in order to bring harmony and balance among species for our beautiful planet? What can I do? What can I contribute? Because, you know, as we know, everyone that's here are caring people. These are people with compassion, with an open heart that want to get involved. We have run out of time, but what I would also like to invite is that you pick a time later today, tomorrow, in a week, just schedule it in and spend some time sitting and just sharing love and gratitude and reverence to pangolin. The ones that you've seen on the screen, the oversoul, all the pangolins in Africa, all of the ones in Asia, and just dedicate that time when you're sitting and being present with them, emitting huge amount of love. That would be a wonderful thing that we can all contribute. Fabulous. Sandra, can we have a follow-up meeting? Oh, always wanting more. Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you to everybody watching the replays. Thank you, Gareth. This has been so interesting. Maybe we'll do it again in another year, huh?
Thank you, Pea, and bless you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Alexis. Thank you, everybody. So much love to you all. Gareth and Alexis, if you can stay on the call, that would be fantastic. Everybody else, thank you. Much love, and hopefully see you again soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.